So, today I am going to be showing you how to move your player character in Godot in my house at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, which I am quite excited to do. So this tutorial is made for beginners in Godot who, like me, would rather dive right into the creation of their game and play around with it rather than looking up a bunch of theory first. For reference, I am using version 4.22 of Godot. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is create a new project. You're going to want to name it after the game. So for example, I'm going to call it Slayer. I'm going to pick a valid path for my project, Godot test. Select the folder. And then here for the renderer, you're going to want to pick mobile. Since this is a 2D tutorial, we do not need any 3D graphics. Go ahead and hit create and edit. For your root node, you're going to want to create a 2D scene. Godot uses scenes and nodes to manage its engine. For now, all you need to know is that a scene can contain many nodes and even other scenes. Vice versa, nodes can contain scenes and other nodes. Depending on how you stack them, these scenes and nodes will have a parent-child relationship. If that doesn't make total sense right now, don't worry about it. It'll become more clear as the video goes on. I'm going to go ahead and name this node level. We're going to hit Control S to save the scene. And we're going to create a folder called Scenes. Inside Scenes, we will save level, like so. And then while we're already creating folders, let's create a couple new ones down here. Let's also create assets. And we can create scripts. Awesome. Okay, so right now we have a level scene with a level node, but we have nothing inside it. Let's add a child node to our level. We hit add child node. We search up sprite 2D. And this node type is for adding sprites into the node. So you just drag in icon. This is the icon for Godot. And there you have it. Now we have a nice sprite in our level. It's gonna be a great reference for our character's movement, as if it was just blank in the background, then we wouldn't know if our character was moving. Now that we have some sort of semblance of a level, it's time to work on our player. For our player character, we're gonna need assets though. Assets contain things like animations, sprites, sound effects, that sort of thing. And for this video, we're gonna use the Ninja Adventure Asset Pack. This asset pack is made by Pixelboy and can be found in the itch store, which I will leave a URL to it in the description of this video. Once you've downloaded and extracted the assets, all you have to do is locate the folder and drag it into the assets folder. There we go, easy as that. Now that we have our assets, it's time to create our player scene. So we can do this by clicking on the plus icon at the top to create a new scene. And instead of using a normal 2D scene, we're going to hit another node. The node we're going to pick is a character body 2D. Character body 2Ds are Godot nodes for physics movement. They're generally used for NPCs and players. Now we can rename the node to player, hit Control S, and save it in our scenes folder. We have the player scene and a character body 2D named player. Next, let's add a child node of sprite 2D to our player. We're going to put in a sprite sheet from our asset folder into our sprite 2D. Sprite sheets contain different frames that will work as animations for our player. Inside the Ninja Adventure Asset Pack, open Actors, Characters, and for this video, I'm going to be using the Green Ninja as our player character. So click and drag in whatever sprite sheet you want to use as the player, and there we go. So now we have a sprite sheet with a bunch of different frames. Click on the Sprite 2D, and in the inspector, go to the Animation tab. Count the number of horizontal and vertical frames in the sprite sheet. In this case, we have 4 horizontal, so put 4 in H frames, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 V frames. So what did we just do? We broke up a sprite sheet into a bunch of different frames, so that when we're animating our player character, we can easily reference each individual frame. It's time to create another child node for our player. This time, we're going to create an animation player node. This node is going to tie together with our Sprite 2D's frames so we can create different animations for different player actions. We have an animation player, but currently no animations. First thing we're going to want to do is scroll to the animation tab at the bottom of the screen, click on the animation button, and add a new animation. Let's call this animation player walk down. At the bottom right of the screen, I recommend hitting snap 0.1 seconds, as it's going to make this process much faster. Now, for setting frames for our walk down animation, select Sprite 2D. Then, in the inspector beside the frame field, hit the key icon. That tells the animation player which frames are going to play for the animation. Now, cycle through the frames, finding any walk down frames. In this case, it's going to be 0, 4, 8, and 12 of our sprite sheet. Hit the key icon on each frame. Let's zoom in on the animation player and see the frames we have selected. Since we have 4 frames, 0.1 seconds apart, we should set the animation length for 0.4 seconds. We can hit the play button on the left, and now we have a working animation for when our player character walks down the screen. Then we just do that 3 more times for each direction our character is going to move, naming each animation player walk up, player walk right, and player walk left. Now that we have our animations, let's create our inputs for the game. Click Project, Project Settings, then go to the input map. Here we can create different actions, such as left, right, up, and down. Then we can add an input to be associated with the action. In this case, we are associating the left action with the A button and left arrow key. Repeat the process of creating a new action and linking inputs to that action with each other direction. Now that we have configured actions and tied inputs to them, let's deal with this error next to player node. Godot is complaining that I haven't added a collision shape to our character 2D player. All we have to do to fix this error is to add a collision shape 2D child node to our player. And in the inspector, give the collision shape 2D a shape. In this case, let's pick a circle. We can then drag in this red dot to decrease the size of the circle to better fit our player. As a side note, Godot layers content based on lowest child node first, so by dragging the collision shape to the top, we can have it hide behind our player image. Don't be afraid to play around with the collision shape, as it defines the area in which your character collides with objects. With that done, let's attach our script to our player. Right-click on the player and click Attach Script. To put it simply, scripts are the code we use that associates with the attached node. In this case, it's going to handle the player logic. We're going to move out of the scene folder and save our player script in the script folder of our project instead. We are going to call the script player, then we hit create. Inside the script, we have a function called physics process, which automatically gets called as long as the node is in our game. I'm going to go ahead and delete most of the physics process, as the code only deals in one dimension of movement. I'm also going to be deleting jump velocity and gravity, as we're not going to need either in this game. Now, we are going to create a variable direction that is equal to the movement direction of our users. We can capture this by linking our actions from our project settings to the script with the input.getVector function. And inside the function, we write our actions in quotes as arguments, so left, right, up, and down. Now, we can assign our player's velocity to the direction variable we assigned times the speed constant, in this case, 50. We will also call the move and slide method, which is a method intended to simplify movement and collision responses with character 2D nodes. Now, let's go back to our level scene. We can find our player in our file system in the scenes folder. Once we locate our player scene, we can simply drag and drop the player scene into the level. Now, anytime we add or change the player scene, it will also affect the player that's inside the level. We can then drag our player around to change its starting position when the level is initialized. To test our game, we can hit the plus icon at the top right of the game engine. In the prompt, select the current scene. We have our player character moving, although it's a little hard to see our character as it's so zoomed out and the screen doesn't even move with our player yet. To fix both these issues, we can use a camera 2D node from our player scene. Once we create the camera node, we can click on it and look at the inspector on the right. We can change the zoom to 3x and 3y, as well as add position smoothing. Also, I noticed our player character was a little slow, so let's go back into our player script and change our speed to 100. Let's hit the play button again, and there we go. Now we have the camera on our player character zoomed in with our character moving at a faster pace. Next step is to link our animations that we made for our player, as currently it's just a static image when our character moves. I'm also going to change the player's speed to 75, as I find that's a good middle ground. Let's create some if statements. We can use input again and check if a certain action was pressed. For example, we can see if a down action was pressed. If so, we can go to our player scene and drag in the animation player into the script. This is a reference to our animation player. Now type .play and in brackets find the appropriate animation. In this case, player walked down. Now copy the if statement we just made and paste it 3 times, replacing the appropriate actions and associated animations. Once we've created all of our if statements, go ahead and click the play button again. And look at that, when our character moves in different directions, the animation changes to that appropriate direction. Some of you may have noticed a couple issues with our animations. First being, there's a little bit of overflow at the top of the animation frames. The second issue being, we don't have an idle animation for when our character stops moving. Let's tackle the overflow on our sprite sheet first. There's actually quite a neat fix for this. Since the overflow is on the top, we can select region, enable it, then set the size to 64 width and 112 height. And then here's the magic, you just set Y to 0.5, which slightly raises the sheet, which will get rid of the overflow. Now we have nice, clean walking animations. Next, we're going to work on our idle animations. Go to the animation tab at the bottom of Godot and click on animation. Select new and name this new animation player idle down. Now go to our sprite sheet and select a still frame of our character looking down. Hit the key icon and create a new track for the animation. Perfect. Now do that for the other 3 directions. Okay, now that we have our 4 idle animations, let's link it to our player script. Let's create a last direction variable, and let's cast this variable as a string. At the bottom of each of our if statements, let's set the last direction variable to the appropriate direction. In this case, we'll set it to the string down. Now we can copy that line, paste it into the bottom of each of those if statements, and change the directions. Next, we can create a new if statement that checks to see if the player velocity is equal to 0. Since velocity is of type vector2, when checking to see if velocity is 0, we need to specify type vector2, then .0. Now we can add in our animation player. Follow it up with a .play, then inside the brackets type player underscore idle underscore surrounded by double quotes. Now outside of the quotes, add a plus sign, followed by our last direction variable. Perfect. Let's hit the play button and see if it worked. Now we have our player character moving around cleanly in our level. If you found this guide helpful, feel free to subscribe to my channel.